When the spiritual search is first awakened in a mind stream, well, there are two parts to it. There is the elation of the possibility, or the glimpse, or the taste of what is beyond what one has thought of oneself. And then usually there's the deflation of ever meeting that possibility, based in the conditioned belief that oneself is the limited mind stream in which this awakening is appearing.
Hello and welcome to Being Yourself, Self-Inquiry with Gangaji. My name is Barbara Denempont, and this month I wanted to try something new. I want to perhaps do a series of podcasts, in particular on the subject of self-hatred. So I know those words are kind of like, oh, we have to talk about that. But I think for many people, this is what finally gets you on the spiritual path. That was certainly true for me. I didn't have any background in meditation, or I didn't have a history with Buddhism, but I did have a history with hating myself. That was a very deeply painful experience, one that I had no idea it was even possible to see something deeper than that, because that's how life was being lived at that time for me. But it turns out there is something, and I really want to share that with you because it's one of the most essential aspects of my own meeting with Gangaji, and certainly what she's given me. And I would love to share that with you in the best way that I know how, simply by sharing some of this material from the archives. This particular piece that I've chosen, I feel like is a really great place to start. It's on the subject of inflation and deflation. And really, what it helps us understand is how this works, how it is that we can spend our life force, our life energy, hating ourselves, instead of simply being ourselves. So let's not postpone this conversation for one more second. Here is the monologue, recorded in Marin in 2002.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It was suggested that it's possible to not think yourself, to simply be yourself. And that possibility is the opening for the indescribable revelation of the truth of yourself that no thought has ever or can ever deliver. When the spiritual search is first awakened in a mind stream, well, there are two parts to it. There is the elation of the possibility, or the glimpse, or the taste of what is beyond what one has thought of oneself. And then usually there's the deflation of ever meeting that possibility, based in the conditioned belief that oneself is the limited mind stream in which this awakening is appearing. Did you follow that? Because it took a turn, so let me know. So that's just the way it is. There's nothing wrong with that. It's in fact can be that sense of deflation that's a kind of fuel to keep one searching, to keep one investigating, to keep one discriminating, so that the ripening can occur, so that there can be true search. So that in that true search there can be real discrimination, so that one can begin to look at one's life deflated with the possibility of what was promised in the initiation of the first spiritual yearning. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's a point in the search and in the discrimination where, through some mystery, some unbelievable luck or grace, something that can't really be equated to what was done or practiced or understood, where something cracks through the deflation, cracks through the yearning and the searching. And the peace and joy and silence that is beyond any understanding or any thought or even any experience is realized, and realized to be who one is. In the past, I have referred to this moment as the essential experience. And that's good enough. I'll continue that. It's not exactly right, but it's good enough. It is an essential experience. And in that, the deflation disappears. So the identification with the hatred of the body, or the hatred of the mind stream, or the hatred of the universe, or the hatred of life disappears. And this is it's a glorious moment. It's a moment of hallelujah. It's a roar, a shout. Now, everyone in this room, to some degree, has experienced that. You could not be in here. Well, maybe you could be here for the first time. But even that, I say, is proof that at some point, remembered or not, that has been experienced. And that's wondrous. That's the confirmation that our meeting is about. And the challenges that then arise are what our conversation is about. So let me say at this point that it is my great joy and privilege to confirm that in you. And it is also my joy and privilege to challenge that. So that in the challenge there can be the deeper confirmation. One of the powers of mind, the mind stream, is that when there has been a penetration, when there's been an opening and a revelation that is beyond what could have been thought or understood or learned or reached, the mind will very quickly, in its power and beauty, weave around that, make that its own. So then rather than deflation, we have inflation. Rather than the deflated ego, there's then the inflated ego. Or some people have referred to it as the enlightened ego. We know it as megalomania. We can see it throughout history, worldly history, spiritual history, it doesn't matter, same history. And you know it in your own experience. The driving force of deflation is to get out of the deflated state because it feels horrible. the worthlessness, the self-hatred, the limitedness, the misery, to get out of that. And the driving force in inflation, of course, is to keep that, because it feels very good. I am limitless being. I am the one. I made it. I got it. I am it. Of course, it takes an enormous degree of maintenance. And often when people ask me the question, how to maintain the true state of revelation, it's really, they are asking the question, how do I maintain my inflated state of myself? Because I like it. It feels great. Right? Right, you know that. It's nothing wrong with that. I'm not speaking of right and wrong right now. I'm just speaking of the way it works. So the first challenge is to allow the deflation to be penetrated so it can be disappeared in a moment of grace. Not that you can disappear it, but it can be disappeared. And of course that is achieved. Well, who knows how it's achieved? However it is achieved. It is beyond the deflated ego's capacity to achieve it. And it is also beyond the inflated ego's capacity to hold the living truth. All that the inflated ego can hold is a thought of the truth, a thought of beauty, a thought of peace, and a thought of silence. A thought of who one is. It's a big thought, and it's a huge thought, and it even points to reality, but it remains a thought. So in our meeting, I do invite you to give up both deflation and inflation. And if you find that you don't want to give up inflation, you're happy to give up deflation, but you don't want to give up inflation. It was just feeling good. It took you so long. This is exactly the state I was in when I met my teacher, when I met Papaji. And I said to him, I'm really afraid that I'm going to lose this, that now finally feels good. And he laughed and laughed and laughed. And he said, it's only because you still don't recognize yourself as the consciousness that holds it all. And when he said that, I recognized that as I had identified myself as a seeker and going to get out of my suffering, going to stop my ego's games, going to do this, going to do that, I was perpetuating the cycle. His initial and final invitation to me and to you is to stop. To stop deflating and to stop inflating. You may not even be aware of the thoughts that go with the deflating or the thoughts that go with the inflating. But if you are not aware of the thoughts, you're aware of the feelings. You're aware of the posture. It's familiar territory, both. One feels horrible, one feels great. But both have weight. And both are lies. The living truth does not belong to any one. There is no one who is more the self than another. There is no one who is more empty than another. There is no one who is more silent than another. And I'm happy to stand on this stage above you to tell you that. That's the paradox. And our time, whether it's this one time or many times or never again, our time is about that. You are the consciousness that holds it all. The force of thought, the force of conditioning is tremendous. It goes back millions of years. And yet that force, too, gets its power from the truth that is consciousness. And without understanding a thing, you already know this. You can discover that by, in this moment in our time together, letting go of all of your understanding. All of it. And then simply being who you are. If there is understanding, let it come from that, not lead that. If there is a particular way of being, let it come from that. If there is a ritual or a practice, let it come from that. If there is a song or a dance, or a book or a painting, or a composition, or life, let it come from that, where it comes from. Then the let it is simply the mind's opening again, rather than closing around, I gotta get it, I gotta keep it. Let it.
I hope that our podcast today has served you as deeply as it has served me. This particular monologue for me is so clarifying and so direct. I really think this was a great place to start, but it's not where I want to end. You could end here. That might actually be great. But if you would like to look at additional aspects of what I would call self-hatred, I would love to do that with you. The way that you could do that is just write to me at info@gangaji.org. That's info@gangaji.org. And just share with me the aspects of this topic that you'd really love to hear more about. Before I sign off today, I just want to remind you that if you'd like Gangaji's complete calendar of events, both in person and online, to find more podcasts and to learn more about the work of her foundation, you can visit her website at gangaji.org. Thank you for this great opportunity. Until next time.